What has the experience like been since you got started?
It's been such a interesting journey. I think I at the very start never would have thought I'd be able to do a role such as this or an environment such as this. And honestly, I even thought that up until working with James, which was my second job, and very much working with him definitely informed the person I was stepping into this role, because the confidence I gained working with him, and just I guess the reassurance and trust in being able to walk into sets that are bigger or larger, I definitely got from him. And it's been such a beautiful journey so far, and I'm very proud of everything I've gotten to be a part of and the stories I've gotten to tell, and I've been very fortunate in that sense. And so it's really interesting looking back that everything has kind of come full circle, because the Testaments is something that I grew up reading. Like, I was obsessed with Margaret Atwood. I'd read all her books, and when the Testaments came out, I bought the book immediately and read it. And so to get to now bring that to life on screen has been truly wonderful.
Did you ever see yourself as a kind of Daisy when you were reading the book before you even knew this show was possible?
I think there's definitely innate similarities between myself and Daisy, and that certainly drew me to the character for sure. And then when I found out they were making the show and then I read the script, I was like, oh, I definitely can feel Daisy and get a sense of her in me. But yeah, she's such a great character, and her duality and her ability to be strong and sarky and fierce, but also really care and love for those around her, I really admired. And I definitely thought that the initial time that I read the book, but also since getting to join it as well.
So how did you come to audition for the series? Did you hear that it was being made and told your management, like, I have to audition? What's the story there?
It was a very standard linear audition process. I didn't know that it was getting made until I got sent that email about it, being like, oh, we've got a show for you to audition for. And at first it was kind of under wraps, so it had a different, code name, and the characters all had different names. I just got sent sides that were with, I think it was called Danielle and Andrea, so instead of Daisy and Agnes. But it was very easy to decode rather quickly that this was the Testaments. And yeah, it was very straightforward. I did a self-tape, I sent it off, and then a couple of weeks later I did a Zoom call with Bruce, our showrunner. I met him. We kind of spent a lot of time really talking about what I thought, what he thought, whether or not those aligned. And then I met Mike Barker, our first director, and then I had the job. And that was kind of it, really. It was a very standard process. There was nothing crazy. There was no crazy stunt tests or anything like that. But it was a joy instantly to be a part of.
When did you figure it out that it was the Testaments?
Before I even auditioned, when I was reading through it, I was like, "This is Testaments."
Yeah.
I'd read the book. I knew that world.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the names attached, you're like, right, this is the Testaments.
DNA. I get
Yeah.
it. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were having read the book, what was your reaction when you realized that they weren't going to have Daisy be Baby Nicole?
Well, I didn't know that till after I got the job.
Oh.
So I got the job and I found out it was Daisy, and I was like, well, I know the books, I know the story, I know her lineage. And then it wasn't until maybe we'd started filming already, actually, because we only got the episodes throughout filming. So when I first got the job, I only had the first episode. Then I got 1 to 3. And then as we're filming, I got each episode kind of incrementally. And so it was during filming very early on that I found out I wasn't going to be Nicole. And it was like a stab in the heart. I really fought tooth and nail to make it happen. But, I think what reassured me, though, was that the Daisy in the book is very much the Daisy on screen. Her energy, her experience, the facets of her as a character and as a being is very much the Daisy that exists in the book and the Daisy that Margaret Atwood created. It's only her lineage that deviates from that source material, and I think that really reassured me and allowed me to revert back to that source material and still trust in it and be like, this is still my Bible and manuscript for this character, because Margaret Atwood created her, and that is still the Daisy that we're going to see on screen. It's just her parents might be slightly different than we first imagined. But it also doesn't hamper the relationship she has with Agnes and even June, because June is still a mother figure to Daisy. Daisy doesn't have any familial relations left in existence in this world, and so June steps in and becomes a very important role model in her life. And And that shared relationship with June is also a bond that she's going to then develop further with Agnes. And Agnes might not be her blood sister, but Agnes is very much Daisy's sister, and the relationship that they have is so crucial to the story. Even in season 1 and hopefully in further seasons, we get to see that grow. So despite any sort of DNA or lineage deviating from the book, I wholly believe Daisy that exists in the book is very much the Daisy on screen.
Yeah, and did that impact, when you found out that you weren't going to be Nicole, did that affect how you saw the character or how you were playing her at first and you had to pivot a little bit, or what was that like?
Honestly, no. I think just kind of referring back to my previous answer was I didn't feel the need to change anything because all the information I had already built up about who this Daisy character was still remained the same, because all my information came from the book, came from Bruce Miller, our showrunner, came from conversations with the writers and with Elizabeth Moss, and so all of that information still rung true, and she still is the Daisy I always thought she was.
Yeah, and she's ultimately like, while it is technically a big book change, it really doesn't feel that different with the character,
No.
like you were saying. She still feels like the book. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, she definitely is.
Yeah. And Bruce Miller told me in the junket that one of the many reasons that you were cast in the role is because you do look a little bit like Elizabeth Moss, so they could visually like see that even though they're not connected, you could feel a connection, or at least kind of see a connection between them. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know
I think that's sweet. And you kind of can see the resemblance, but
Yeah.
it also is like they are like a chosen family to each other, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting because especially in the world of Gilead, so many of these individuals are not biologically related. They are families that have been pieced together like a mosaic. And so in very many ways, Daisy is just another piece in that mosaic, and she is very much still part of Agnes's family and part of June's family.
Yeah. Yeah, and talk about that scene in the finale that Daisy has with June, where June realizes who Daisy has been with this whole season long. What was that like to film?
That was a really wonderful scene to film because it really captured the final, I guess, head-butting of these two characters. They're very strong, they're very similar, and it was coming to terms for each of them that they don't understand the other person as much as they thought they did. And so they've both built up preconceived ideas of who they thought this other person was, and actually in that scene they're kind of realizing, oh, my ideas are potentially incorrect. For example, Daisy has seen June as I guess an individual who's able to walk away or doesn't care as much about fighting for these girls, and obviously everyone who's watched Handmaid's Tale knows that not to be true, but Daisy isn't aware of it until that moment when she actually understands the gravity of June's life and what June has fought for, in the same way that June has seen Daisy as almost not a liability, but a bomb going off, and maybe not the most headstrong or the most determined or the best choice of individual to be thrown into Gilead, or the best person to be fighting for her daughter. And actually in this scene she realizes Daisy's strength and Daisy's ability to face these situations head on and to not back down, and I think she sees an element of herself in Daisy in that scene, and it's a newfound respect that each of them develop for both of them. And it's that newfound respect that gives June the confidence to send Daisy back into Gilead and to trust in her that this is a person that can help her daughter. And so it was a really beautiful scene to film because we were trying to, I guess, find the balance of combat, but also the love that they clearly have for each other and admiration that they clearly have for each other. And I think we did it, and I'm very proud of that scene. And just getting to film with Elizabeth Moss is truly a privilege. She's the embodiment of The Handmaid's Tale, and so I never took it for granted getting to share the screen with her.
Yeah, you have a lot of really great scenes with her in this season.
We did.
Yeah, and the moment when Daisy tells Agnes about her mother, was there any variation in the story or possibility for her to tell her in a different way, to your knowledge, or was it always going to be? Because when I was watching it, I was like, oh, she really just like went for it.
Yeah.
She didn't doubt this. She was like, I have to tell her right now.
That scene actually was probably one of the most difficult to film, and it took us so long to film it, which is crazy because we've got scenes with a lot of action going on, or a lot of people in the scenes, and there's a lot of moving parts. But that scene actually took really long because we really were specifically trying to land it in a way that evoked what it does in the scene and said exactly what it does say, because we wanted the intentions behind it to be very clear. It's a very calculated decision Daisy undertakes to tell Agnes in such a manner, and it's not done out of malice, and it's not done out of a desire to evoke some sort of storm within Agnes. It's done in a place of love and wanting to truly allow Agnes a piece of information, because ultimately that's what these girls are deprived of, information and access to knowledge. And so we really were redoing it to try and land it in the way that it does. And also with Agnes's reaction, we wanted that to be so specific. And so it did, yeah, we were really spent a lot of time trying to make it come across in the way that it does on screen, and to have that specific delivery that Daisy gives. And so I'm very proud of what it does on screen, because I think it does capture the kindness behind it rather than a malice. And it is such an evocative and powerful moment in the series, potentially one of the biggest points of the series. And so I'm really excited for viewers to see it, because I feel like it's what a lot of them have been waiting for the whole season, is that moment of when Agnes finally finds out who her mum is. And so yeah, it's a lovely scene.
Yeah, and I also burst out laughing when she was like, the terrorist?
Yeah,
response.
exactly.
It's so funny.
Exactly.
And so sad that she has no memories of her.
Yeah, exactly.
Other than her own name, which we saw her
Exactly.
write down Hannah
Yeah.
and everything. But it's so sad. I hope maybe in the future, should the show be renewed, her memories will come back to
Yeah.
her. But do you think that she was also doing that, Daisy was also telling Agnes for June a bit?
I think for sure. I think there was an element of Daisy has a lot of respect for June, and she wants to give June that opportunity to, at least for Agnes to know who June is. I think it's also in the sense of Daisy is aware that there is a much bigger picture here, and Daisy can't do this alone, and she needs to find ways of showcasing to these girls about what the outside world really is and what the regime in Gilead really is. And this is definitely an opportunity for Daisy to at least start dropping in those hints towards Agnes, and start offering information to Agnes about the reality of Gilead and the reality of what's truly going on. And I think that's what she's doing in that moment.
You said that was one of the most difficult scenes of the season. What's another one that was surprisingly tricky to land?
Do you know what I will say that I found interesting is that the scenes that on paper I always thought that would be the hardest, scenes like, the scenes with corrections happening, or a lot of violence, or a lot of just stuff going on. Whenever I thought a scene would be particularly difficult, I was often surprised that actually wasn't what I found tricky. And then quite often you'd be taken aback that a scene that you thought would be pretty calm and mundane would really throw a curveball to you. I think some that come to mind is that this scene in episode 2 when Daisy's in corrections with the mask on her face and all the girls are screaming. I thought that scene would be horrendous to film, but actually the levity that was on set that day truly shifted it in a different direction. I remember all the scenes in the Barrel and in Toronto with the Pearl Girls. Actually, they ended up being a lot more difficult to film.
Yeah. You have Margaret Atwood makes a cameo in the finale.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't in a scene that you were in, but did you
Yeah.
get to spend some time with her on set?
I did. I was so delighted to be able to meet Margaret Atwood. She was around a fair bit towards the end of our filming, and I met her on set. I met her for lunch. We watched the first 3 episodes of The Testaments. I watched it elbow to elbow with Margaret Atwood.
Wow.
Which was nerve-wracking to say the least,
Sure.
but it was a pinch me moment for real, and I don't think many individuals will get an opportunity like that to be able to sit next to an author that they have admired their whole childhood and still to this day admire, and watch it come to life on screen, the version that you have been a part of creating. And it was such a joy. She is a truly unique individual. She is so smart, she is so quick-witted, she is incredibly intelligent, and I took great joy in sharing time with her.
Yeah. And just to wrap up, should the show be renewed, what are your hopes for Daisy and Agnes's relationship in season 2?
I hope it continues to flourish in the way that we have seen in season 1, at least it develop. I hope that sisterly bond and love that they have for each other continues to grow, and I hope that they realise that the strength that they have exists within that relationship and within each other, and that they need each other and they need that relationship to be able to survive the Gilead regime and to be able to enact a change, because we cannot enact a change on our own. It can only be done in community and the mass uprising of human beings, and so I think they realise that, hopefully.
Yeah, and as the first episode said, these girls are destined to change the world, so hopefully we'll get to see that flesh out.
Exactly.